take your addresses? Hey, Lena? Yep, and I'll put them right here, okay?
Is it as far as it goes? If that's in the way, is that going to be in the way?
Come on in, everybody. We're going to get started in a second. Should we get started?
Welcome to the awards ceremony for 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. It is so nice to be sitting in the Bodmin all together as a community and to take a moment to reflect on our year and appreciate all of you. Last spring, we experienced something that none of us had seen before. The COVID pandemic impacted our entire world. The United States went into lockdown, and so did Kents Hill School. We ran out of toilet paper, and Clorox wipes were impossible to find. Going outside for a walk was the highlight of a day, and at least in our house, game nights and forced family fun were way too big a part of teenage life. We were also watching as George Floyd's death led to protests all around the country. And while presidential elections are always important, in my 48 years, I've never seen an election that elicited such fear, anger, and resentment. Everywhere we looked, there was upheaval and uncertainty, and finding things to feel positive about sometimes felt impossible. Last year for graduation, it was entirely virtual, other than a car parade of the seniors who lived close enough to come and drive by. Colleges and high schools told people that they were not going to allow in-person learning, and those that did had huge outbreaks when they came back to school. We couldn't see our families, hug our friends, or even take our masks off around people who did not live with us. There was a constant barrier between us and other humans. And we had to learn how to reconnect, and it was really hard. We figured out which masks we liked and which ones we didn't. We carried hand sanitizer and extra masks everywhere we went, which was not very many places. Things that had been a normal part of our lives, movie theaters, restaurants, shopping, visiting with family and friends, were no longer an option to us. We were introduced to Zoom, which allowed us to never miss a day of school, as we could learn from anywhere. We spent a lot of the past year divided by how seriously we took COVID, by who we wanted to have as a president, by what we valued and believed our country should be about. We saw that on our own campus. We saw it with the election and with conversations about social justice and with mask wearing. We felt it as day students ate in one building and boarding students in another, as we had to sit facing one direction in all of our classrooms instead of in a circle or around a table where we could all talk to each other, as we sat with one friend at meals and had to figure out who that was and then who had to sit alone, as we followed signs that had us go in one door and out the other, as it felt like we saw the same people and only those people every single day. And somehow we made it. Here we are, celebrating all of you and how you have navigated all of the things that have been thrown your way. As Michelle Obama once said, you should never view your challenges as a disadvantage, and each of you personifies this. Our ninth graders, who have never known Kensil as anything other than it is during COVID, are the most connected class I've ever seen. Their core value is compassion, and they show this consistently and authentically. I know this because they come to my house every afternoon to play volleyball. They are unapologetically themselves, and they argue as loudly as they laugh. I wish I could watch them over the next 3 years as they model inclusivity in ways we all can learn from. Our 10th graders, with a core value of altruism, are change makers. They're sitting on panels to talk to our faculty about race and gender on our campus. They're proctors in our dorms. They're playing important roles on our varsity sports teams. They're representing Kensil at Model UN, and they're the ones raising the most money for food and fuel. They have powerful voices, and I wish I could watch them over the next 3 years to see what they do to make our campus a better place. Our 11th graders are unafraid. They are the ones who hold up a mirror to us all, point out the ways that we need to be better, and then help us do the work to get there. They sit on committees and give hours of time to help us navigate COVID, academic schedules, and find the right people to hire. They're part of the collective, diving in deeply to hard conversations about gender and equality. They point out when peak conversations need to be done differently and help us figure out what it should look like. It is not easy to do this work, and I'm grateful to them that they are willing. Their core value is friendship, and I hope for them that their senior year reconnects them to their class, and that they find ways to enjoy and appreciate each other. I hope that when you all look back over this year, you remember the hard stuff, because that is often where the deepest learning comes from. I hope that you all learn from the 11th graders how you have to do the hard work, even when it is painful, because that's where real change comes. I hope you learn from the 10th graders how to show up, find your voice, and use it. And I hope you all learn from the 9th graders how to be compassionately inclusive. I literally breathe a sigh of relief every time I walk outside and take my mask off. And I hope you all can join me in a feeling of hope for our country, as well as for our school. We will bring some of the things we learned in COVID, how awesome our waterfront is, spring fling, and in particular the color race, sex ed is part of our curriculum, and Adirondack chairs all around the campus, and the sloth into next year. And we look forward to a return to 8 chairs at every table in the Commons, having every student in class in person and not on Zoom, all school meetings in the Bodman, full-on winter carnival, and competing against schools other than Gould. Take the lessons you have learned with you and go into next year with hope, compassion, altruism, and friendship. I will miss you all. Now the reason we are here today, to hear more about the award recipients for the 9th, 10th, and 11th grades. I'm so happy to introduce Dr. Priest, who will give out the awards.
Thanks, Meadow. This year has truly been one for the books. As Meadow suggested, we are nearing the end of a 15-month experience that is without parallel in recent Kensil history. I've been thinking a lot about how to conclude, and make sense of this school year. And I keep returning to the idea that almost every generation has a handful of shared experiences that define what it means to be a member of that generation. So you can ask people of a particular age group, where were you when blank happened? And they can immediately tell you a story. Everyone in my parents' generation had a story about where they were and what they were doing when they learned that John F. Kennedy had been assassinated, or where they watched the 1969 moon landing. Every member of my generation has a story about where they were when the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001 occurred. My hunch is that at least one of your generation-defining experiences will turn out to be COVID. 10, 15, 20 years from now, your conversations with peers will occasionally include some version of, where were you when COVID happened? And you will respond by talking about the past year, about having to get tested and retested in the L Fund, about wearing masks almost everywhere on campus, even outdoors, about attending Zoom classes with hardworking teachers who do their best to make things work, but knew, as you did, that online learning just wasn't the same, and about spending many of your evenings in your dorm rooms, alone. This afternoon, we're here to celebrate academic achievement, as we always do this time of year, but I want to make sure that we also acknowledge the uniqueness and the unpleasantness of this situation. Kents Hill students created triumph out of tragedy this year. And when I look at our exam grades, our end-of-year GPAs, and our impressive list of award winners, I see genuine victories everywhere. If you made it through this school year at all, congratulations. If you managed to make honor roll or honors with distinction while navigating Kents Hill's necessary, but at times suffocating health and safety rules, that's amazing. And if you were one of the select few to hear their names called this afternoon, it means that you not only excelled academically, but that you did so in some of the strangest conditions imaginable. You deserve to be celebrated, and today we will celebrate you. So to that point, we will announce our first several award winners, starting with this year's freshmen. And I'm just going to ask that when I read each recipient's name, for the love of God, make some noise and make them feel appreciated, because they deserve it. The Crystal Chase Award is given to that freshman who combines a serious commitment to academics with enthusiastic involvement in all aspects of student life. It is awarded in the memory of Crystal Chase, class of 1899. The 2021 recipient of the Crystal Chase Award is Eli Reynolds. Go this way. I don't know. We need to hear from the COVID task force here. Can we shake hands? The Warren E. Tamaris Award is presented annually to the freshmen who, through their character, scholarship, and dedication, best exemplifies the educational philosophy of Mr. Tamaris to do your best. The 2021 recipient of the Warren E. Tamaris Award is Gabrielle Lewis. The Kents Hill Award for Academic Achievement is given to 4 freshman students for educational commitment, growth, or improvement. So I'm going to read all 4 names, and then you can respond with wild, sustained applause. The 2021 freshman recipients of this award are Greer Slater, Lily James, Zoe Cheney, and Jessica Sanborn. Congratulations. Good job, freshmen. We all know that COVID has made international travel incredibly complicated, and moreover, that it's impacted our community by discouraging some students from attending Kents Hill in person. Many of our international students, including several of our graduating seniors, have been remote all year, while others have moved uneasily across national borders. not always knowing when or how they would be able to see their families again. Our first student speaker has spent much of this year on the Kents Hill campus and has at times struggled with the specific kind of loneliness that comes from being trapped in one place for long stretches of time. My guess is that many of you can relate to her experience, so please give your undivided attention to Lina Andando.
Hi everyone. As I know you've all heard 1,000 times, this past year has been pretty unpredictable and generally just really weird. Doing hybrid lessons, open note tests, and not having as many long breaks are all things that were out of the ordinary. I can especially attest to this based on my experience during the Thanksgiving break last year. Being an international student definitely has its downsides when it comes to the amount of time it takes to get home. Since I literally live across the world, it takes 2 days worth of traveling to get there. This meant that I had nowhere to go over the break since going home would be pointless. And I really didn't think doing my finals online with the time difference while jet lagged was a recipe for success. This really showed me how different my life had become since COVID hit. I was stuck in the dorm with nowhere to go and nothing to do. Especially being someone who's pretty friend-oriented, this was a very long 4 days. One of the things that worried me most, however, was that my friends who chose to go home would stay and do online school, which would mean another 2 weeks in an empty dorm. During this time, I realized how stranded I felt. I missed being able to go home and see my family and friends back in Kenya, even if it was just for a week or so. At the beginning of COVID, all I wanted to do was leave the house and come here to see my friends. But when they were all gone, I realized how much I had missed being trapped with my family. Speaking of being trapped, seeing the same people all the time for 6 months straight was definitely something I struggled with when COVID hit. After we all got the news that we were going to be leaving school early, I was just barely able to make it home before Kenya closed its borders to incoming flights. When I got home, I was pretty excited. The same was true when I heard that the break was extended. However, this joy ended soon when I found out I wouldn't be returning to Maine for the last stretch of the school year. We ended the school year pretty early and basically had a 6-month break, and we weren't even sure the next time we'd be able to be in person school again. Now, I know for some of you, online school is a blast because you didn't really have to pay attention, but I personally think that, and I think most of the international students can agree with me on this, I didn't find it that exciting. Factors like living in a fairly full house and doing Zoom meetings with a 7-hour time difference aren't exactly favorable when doing online school. I also tend to be very hands-on and a visual learner, so it was definitely something that hindered my learning experience. To say the least, online school was not fun at all. I had to start classes at 5 p.m. and end them at 9, and on top of that, I had to deal with constantly being nagged by my parents to help my siblings get into their classes and fix the Wi-Fi. I was basically tech support because nobody knew what they were doing. Aside from classes, I couldn't visit any of my friends back home. Looking back, one of the things I hated most was not being able to see my friends. COVID stole my ability to not only say goodbye to my senior friends, but I also lost the ability to see my friends here and home. Because whenever I was in school, they were free, and when they were in school, I was not free. When they were in school, I was free. Hearing that I would be able to come back was like winning the lottery. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my family, but seeing the same people every day was tiring. A lot of people ask me why I didn't do online school, but as I said before, none of the conditions were in my favor, and I just wanted to be in person and see everyone's faces. Even though being in school or practicing social distancing and wearing masks everywhere was not my favorite thing to do, it was still a step forward to a bit of normalcy in my life. Being in school made me realize that I missed my teachers and friends, and I was actually very happy to be on campus, which is something I never thought I'd say. However, being in person did not magically make the hardships of COVID disappear. I still wasn't able to hang out with my friends like I used to, like visitation and hang out with my day student friends and eating in the dining commons. The dorm rules were pretty challenging too, since I couldn't eat in the common rooms, there were shower times, and I could only hang out with one person in my room at a time. Despite all these challenges, I was able to persevere and continue, because even though the norm was different, I was still able to be here. Going back to Thanksgiving, by this time I was still starting to feel pretty separated. I realized that even if anything was to go wrong or I needed to be off campus, I wouldn't be able to because of how far I live. Though I was grateful to be in school, being able to see people is what made it bearable. However, that's not to say it was all dark. I was still able to do things such as dominating in Just Dance, learning how to ski, and playing Mario Kart in the dorm. Despite all the bad, there were still some things that made this year a bit brighter. To end this kind of long speech, I want to say that I'm proud to have been able to survive this year despite all the curveballs that were thrown at me. I was able to finish this year without going crazy and ripping all my hair out. While it was fun to be on the hill, I'm glad that I'm finally able to go home.
Thanks, Lena. And now we'll continue with our sophomore awards. The Glen Dana Award was established by the class of 1974 in memory of their classmate, Glen Alexander Dana. It is awarded to a student who demonstrates academic and athletic promise, respect for others, and a zest for life. The 2021 recipient of the Glen Dana Award is Holden Hall. The Stewart. The Stuart Payne Robinson Award is given to the student who accepts the moral and intellectual challenges of life without fear and gives of self whenever called. The 2021 recipient of the Stuart Payne Robinson Award is Rose Jenkins. We also give Kensel Awards for academic achievement to 4 sophomore students for their educational commitment, growth, or improvement. So again, I'm going to read all 4 names and then we can applaud. The 4 2021 sophomore recipients are Tyler Smith, Ava Nadeau, Charlotte Harper Cunningham, and Josie Harper Cunningham. Congrats. Kensel School also honors several distinguished scholars every year. This award is given to the student from each class who has the highest grade point average. So we're talking about a really small and elite group here, just 1 student from each class. Again, I'll read all of the names and then you can respond with wild and slightly unsettling applause. Our 2021 distinguished scholars are from the freshman class, Morgan Townley, from the sophomore class, Kyla Danielson, and from the junior class, Amita Nanda. Come on up. One of the strangest things about our COVID year was watching a presidential election unfold in the middle of it. In my lifetime, elections have grown nastier and more divisive with each cycle. And so for me personally, the 2020 election was one of those when it rains, it pours situations. If you wanted to take a nerve-wracking chapter of human history and somehow make it even worse, you could insert a vicious presidential election into the middle of it. And that's basically what we ended up with. Our second speaker is a Kensel student whose 2020-2021 school year was inflected and at times made more challenging by political events, but who also found things to appreciate about her unforgettable year. Please give your undivided attention to Alana Batchelder.
I think I'm good without a stool. Alrighty. Here's to an unforgettable year. Here's to everyone who lost their sports seasons. Here's to everyone who lost connections with people. Here's to everyone who struggled with mental health. This virus has done nothing but make things 10 times harder for everything and everyone in our lives. My heart goes out to our seniors, both last year's and this year's. I know they haven't gotten the whole high school experience as it was hyped up to be. That really goes for anyone in school at the moment. You were all troopers, and I feel for you. Thank you for keeping your heads high and creating an unforgettable year for the books. This school year was particularly difficult with all the rules that were set in place and all the separation we experienced. It's not easy seeing your friends and not being able to hug them. Hugs are good for the heart. It's hard being on Zoom for classes and even paying attention, much less actually understanding what's going on. It was upsetting to have day and boarding students separated for lunch because that was our time to see each other and talk in years past. It felt like most teachers were forced to cram in everything they could since we didn't have as much class time. It was unsettling for day students to go from being on campus for hours after school in years past to not being able to go into dorms or even be on campus much at all. Things that used to be normal were punishable. People you used to see every day you were separated from. I noticed the mental health in our community was not at its peak. Another hard thing about 2020 and 2021 was the election. Teachers and students followed along closely, and tension in the air was rising as things went forward. This past election year was a bumpy road, to say the least, especially with COVID being added to it. Lots of disagreements were floating in the air on campus between teachers, students, and parents. This is really hard being a part of while focusing on school, athletics, and yourself. Lots of things were said to people or behind people's backs, which shouldn't be who we are. It was hard seeing people judge each other for what they believe politically rather than who they are as a person. I noticed that politics were getting into every classroom, and if you had an unpopular opinion, it never went well. The separation between students from their peers due to difference of opinion was unreal. Some people at the Hill could have done a better job listening and supporting each other when it came to differing opinions. But we live, and we learn, and we forgive. That's what we need to remember. We live, we learn, and we forgive. But for all the things that went wrong, there was a lot more that went right. I witnessed us come together at times when it got tough, and times were tough all year. After games were canceled, I saw people practice harder. When people failed tests, I saw them work their butts off to do better next time. When someone was having a noticeably bad day, I saw people support them and lift them up. I saw so much support from so many people, even when things were unfair and hard. No one predicted this pandemic was going to happen, but being in a community where teachers understand you is huge. I want to thank all the staff who understood what we were going through all the mess-ups and late homework assignments, the tardies and the times we slept through class. You were all there to listen and support us. Thank you for understanding how this is not how high school is supposed to be, and for always trying to make the best out of a bad situation. The school year of 2021 was one to remember, but hopefully never live through again. It was a bumpy road this year with all the rules and regulations, schoolwork and exams, athletics basically being limited to only being practices, and politics where our country was divided. This year was not easy to live through, but we did it together. The energy was very different, but we all adapted and we all came together like never before. Despite the fun dinner nights never happening, no homecoming, and very few hugs being passed around, we all made it. We made it through one of the hardest years teenagers will have to get through for quite a while. Things were not normal, but the Kents Hill community, we made our own normal. Once again, congratulations to everyone who struggled but kept going. At different times in the year, we were all at the point of not wanting to get out of bed or get our work done, but we did. Thank you to all the teachers and students for understanding each other because we're all in the same boat. I am grateful to be a part of such an understanding, happy, and persevering community. Here's to an unforgettable year. Thank you.
Thanks, Lomb. So at this point, we're going to mix things up for a minute or two. We have a special announcement from the world of athletics, and I'm going to invite Mr. R.J. Jenkins to either come up or stand up and tell us about one of the other ways in which Kents Hill students are excelling this spring.
Thank you, Dr. Priest. At this time, I would like to recognize 4 student athletes who have qualified for the Maine State Track and Field Championships held this upcoming Saturday in Brewer, Maine. Qualifying for states is not an easy feat and requires lots of hard work and skill. While the spring sports season ended a couple of weeks ago, these 4 athletes have continued to practice and put in the work necessary to reach their peak this upcoming Saturday. Coach Sage and I are very proud of the work that they have done to prepare. First off, we have a 4x100 meter relay team composed of Naomi McGadney, Bree Lewis, Alana Batchelder, and Rose Jenkins. And for individual events, Naomi McGadney has qualified for the 100 meter dash, the long jump, and the triple jump. And Rose Jenkins has qualified for the 200 meter dash, the 300 meter hurdles, and the high jump. I would ask if these 4 athletes could please stand to be recognized. Please wish them luck this Saturday, and girls, don't forget we have practice at 3 o'clock.
All right. Our final set of awards is devoted to this year's juniors, and it culminates in 4 of the Distinguished College Book Awards. So just fair warning, we've got a lot of awards to give away here, so we're going to be doing a lot of applauding. The Rensselaer Medal is given by Kents Hill's Math and Science departments and is awarded to a junior with an outstanding record in math and science. The winner of the 2021 Rensselaer Medal is Amita Nanda. The Bausch and Lomb Honorary Science Award is presented to the junior who has demonstrated excellence in science. The winner of the 2021 Bausch and Lomb Award is Jackson Melendi. The Eric Nessler Plote Award is awarded to a junior in memory of Eric Plote, class of 1989, who became a leader of this school community through his own determination, perseverance, and goodwill. The recipient of the 2021 Eric Nessler Plote Award is Matthew Welton. The Jenny Flood Krieger Award was established in 1937 by Jenny Flood Krieger. It nominates a junior who is outstanding in character and scholarship. The 2021 recipient of the Jenny Flood Krieger Award is Naomi Balon. And this next winner is not here with us in person, but is watching from afar, so we're going to give him a shout out. The William W. Dunn Award is awarded in memory of William W. Dunn, headmaster of Kents Hill School from 1942 to 1965, whose lifelong interest was to develop in every student the desire to achieve his or her individual potential and to serve the community. The 2021 recipient of the William W. Dunn Award is Jack Power. Congrats, chap. Hope you're watching at home. The Cameron Dow Scholarship is awarded to a male boarding student rising into the 12th grade who, like Cameron, is quietly altruistic, a loyal and respected friend, has compassion for all living things, and possesses an innate wisdom and courage beyond his years. The 2021 recipient of the Cameron Dow Scholarship is Dauda Niang. Dauda was also unable to join us in person. The Phi Beta Kappa Award is awarded to a junior who is striving to go on to higher education and who has demonstrated intellectual curiosity and achievement beyond the classroom. The 2021 winner of the Phi Beta Kappa Award is Jackson Melendi. And now for the 4 college awards. The Smith College Book Award is awarded to the young woman in the junior class who exemplifies academic achievement, leadership, and a concern for others. The 2021 winner of the Smith College Book Award is Amita Nanda. The Williams Book Award is given to a junior who has demonstrated intellectual leadership and has made a significant contribution to the extracurricular life of the school. The 2021 winner of the Williams Book Award is Naima O'Rourke. The Dartmouth College Award is awarded to the member of the junior class of outstanding personal character, intellectual promise, and exemplary citizenship. The 2021 recipient of the Dartmouth College Award is Shay Cheney. And finally, the Yale Book Award is awarded to a member of the junior class of outstanding personal character and intellectual promise. The 2021 recipient of the Yale Book Award is Aaron Jones. We hear one more congratulations for the junior class. It was great. We will end today's celebration by hearing from our faculty speaker, Mr. Adam Shabbat. As most of you know, Mr. Shabbat has been a significant presence on the Kents Hill campus for the better part of a decade. He is a widely respected teacher and coach, and he edits Kents Hill's literary magazine, Juxtapose, which is dropping this afternoon, right? Yeah. And he even published one of my poems this year, so he's a very generous editor. But Mr. Shabbat is also a family man, and like anyone who lives on campus and has kids, he has had to adjust to a radically different situation this year, especially when it comes to navigating our campus spaces and figuring out where his family can and cannot be. In a year of trying experiences, this is one of the easiest to overlook, but also one of the most impactful. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Shabbat.
And now a reading of Dr. Priest Paul. I'm just kidding. In 1947, 2 Kents Hill School alumni, John Newton, class of 1888, and Oscar Young, class of 1881, published this book. Almost 70 years ago. It's titled Kents Hill and Its Makers. I read it last summer. I think I had been looking for an answer to some truth to everything that had been happening to our school and our community and to the world at large. We were on the precipice of what I believed was going to be the most unique year in Kents Hill history. At that time, the faculty and staff, we met for weekly Zoom town halls to discuss plans for opening the year. We made videos about how to enter and leave buildings. We remodeled classrooms, built furniture, purchased desks. We adjusted to hybrid learning and I remember taping poorly designed arrows with painter's tape to my classroom carpet to indicate appropriate traffic flow. Honestly, it still seems so surreal. And so I looked into the annals of nearly 200 years of Kensal history for something that could give me some insight. And I discovered that Mr. John Newton, who's not only an alumnus of the school and a co-author of this book, but he served as principal or head of school from 1909 to 1923. He was at the Kensal helm as 225 students were enlisted in World War I, a war that claimed the lives of 10 Kensal students. A memorial plaque hangs to this day honoring those 10 students in Beers Hall. And on the heels of one of the worst wars on record, a war that deeply impacted our community, a virulent flu arrived in the late fall of 1918. In response, Mr. Newton closed the school and sent all students home for several weeks. One student, Norman Luce of Reedfield, passed away from the flu, but it was Mr. Newton's family that was perhaps most impacted. All three of his young adult sons, Max, Ronald, and Robert, each passed away as a direct result or from complications later in their lives related to the pandemic of 1918. And so needless to say, my initial look into the past, into Kensal's past, had not only made me fear this year even more, but it certainly left me with a lot of questions. It felt like history was repeating itself. An uncontrolled global pandemic, tenuous political relationships within our borders and beyond, and again, so many questions, so few answers. Who knew what was next? About a week before our school year began, I watched my 4-year-old son Oscar play in the sandbox just outside our campus apartment. As he dug holes and dragged around toy tractors, I wondered what would happen once the COVID-19 virus finally arrived. I could only guess at the ceremony of losses. I felt like I was mourning the impending experiential casualties of our students, our school, the snatching away of contemporary rites of passage, or in my eventual and personal case, the simple ability to let my son walk around campus or go into buildings like a member of the community. The truth is, he barely remembers my advisees. He no longer asks to see Sherry in the dining commons or Addie in the front office. He still thinks it's soccer season because my wife and I didn't have the heart to tell him we couldn't go to the Alphon to watch hockey. It would have devastated him, but then, of course, there was a worse possibility. What would happen if we got sick? But we came back. The influx of students this past fall brought an energy the campus so desperately needed. We were masked, but we were here, and that mattered. To this day, each and every morning, I wake up in admiration of our student body and of my colleagues. We've been forced to navigate a terrible situation over which we had no control. So we forged our community in innovative ways. Ko-ho-ko, a modified winter carnival, spring fling. We played way too much lightning and had turf parties. We tuned into the sloth and we applauded the efforts of our remote students, some of whom were taking classes in the middle of the night. What we could control was the narrative we crafted for ourselves, for our year. Each chapter, each story we tell about this year necessitates a conscious choice in how we want to tell it. Even if someone is wearing a mask, you can still tell if they're smiling. As for the past, Mr. Newton persevered, and he became a highly revered member of the community who eventually gave 46 years of teaching administrative service to the school. Mr. Newton believed in what always made Kensal a success. He emphasized individualized learning, the value of a character-based education, and making Kensal an appropriate place for all learners. He looked to his teachers to be innovators of modern methods of teaching. He believed in the value of the arts and athletics as part of the educational experience. And he was the first principal to permit dancing and public movie screenings, which were a big deal. Before his eventual resignation as principal, he and the faculty had pulled Kensal School out of World War I and a flu pandemic with average enrollments of over 200 students per year. In fact, this very building which we have assembled at the conclusion of our historical year is named after the man I've introduced to you today. So I suppose, in a way, looking into the past for some answers was a beneficial experience. History has shown me that we've done this before. Your teachers will continue to be there for you no matter what. And as many have stated in these last couple of weeks, and as we get to celebrate today, teachers like Mr. DeHaven and Mrs. Dunn, who have combined given nearly 75 years worth of devotion, dedication, and support for their students, will always be there for you. This is not a revelation. This is the bedrock of our school. In this book that I've introduced to you today, Mr. Newton and Mr. Young include a chapter titled, "Are Schools Like Kensal Still Needed?" And here's a brief snippet of what they had to say. Quote, "The student of the secondary school finds not only teachers but friends and advisors. The school is directly responsible for the physical and more moral as well as the intellectual well-being of its students. We venture to say that in no other class of school is more painstaking care shown in the selection of teachers than in the old private school. Teachers of character, who regard salary less than service. Teachers who are bound up in the development of the full person, physically, morally, and intellectually. They are more than classroom teachers. What they are is more value to the student than their work in algebra and Latin classes. There will always be a need for such service," end quote. So today, I'd like to think history has repeated itself, but for the better. I then realized that the story of Kensal School will continue, and there are parts of this book that are still being written. I'm sure Mr. Newton carried the burden of his tragedies, his personal tragedies, for the rest of his life. And I also want to make clear that clinging to any frustration or sadness or anger about this year is totally understood, if not condoned. But what has made Kensal great for so many years continues in a variety of forms, and it proves that our community truly is one of our strengths, even in light of great fear, uncertainty, and tragedy. A couple of weeks ago, Oscar and I watched tennis practice. He scoured the grass for tennis balls, and he threw them over the fence to waiting students. It was silly. It was normal. It reminded me of why I love this place so much. Even after all we've been through, our students still took the time to throw a ball with my kid. We will feel this again, and this will be normal. I can't wait for you all to return in the fall. Congrats on making it through a great year.
Thanks, Mr. Chabot. That was great. So in a second, we're all going to leave Bodmin for the last time this year. Grades 9 through 11 students will head back to their dorms to finish packing. Many of them will leave this afternoon. Others will head out tomorrow morning. Seniors have a few days of activities to look forward to, and then on Saturday, graduation. But in closing, I want to say on behalf of the Kensal faculty just how proud we are of all of you. All of you. This was, as our speakers emphasized, an unforgettable year, but you also made it a great year. Have a good day and a great summer. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, you guys.